but we bet our next guest has, and that's because he's an ex-Air National Guard pilot, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, who joins us now. Congressman, great to see you. So, do you have any confusion? Thank you for coming in. Do you have any confusion about the mission, our goals of our pilots over there?
Well, you know, I'm still an Air National Guard pilot, and, you know, I think that's been my big criticism on this. Look, I think we're doing the right thing in Libya. I would have liked to have seen us a couple weeks ago actually go in and enforce a strict no-fly zone, because I think that would have prevented the rebels from being beat back, or at least would have given them better advantage. But one of my big concerns is whenever you submit the military to action, you have to have a clearly defined goal. Is that goal the removal of Gaddafi? Is that goal not the removal of Gaddafi, but allowing, you know, to giving a better environment for the rebels to come in? That needs to be defined, and especially from a pilot perspective, things in the heat of battle sometimes get very, very confusing, and we have to have a very defined goal and rule of engagement, but you can't have, you know, kind of an opaque mission out there.
Well, and from a pilot's perspective, I mean, it must be very confusing. Our job, according to NATO, is to protect civilians. Now, what if in hitting a Gaddafi target, we're actually hitting Gaddafi-supporting civilians? I mean, there are some of them out there, and if that mistake is made, some of these pilots could be prosecuted.
Yeah, I think when it comes to rules of engagement, you can't define a rule of engagement as, well, your job, your rule is to protect civilians, because that comes down to a very subjective moment-by-moment decision. When it comes to actually flying the aircraft and enforcing the no-fly zone, you know, that's fairly cut and dry. If you have an enemy aircraft in the sky, that enemy aircraft doesn't stay in the sky much longer. But from a ground perspective, you have to be able to look at that and say, in this circumstance, this is when you attack. If you give something big like just simply protect civilians, that's hard as a pilot always to distinguish. And if we make a wrong decision, we intend to do well. If a pilot makes a wrong decision, we can be held responsible for violating rules of engagement that may be, as I said, very opaque.
And by the way, the one fighter, actually I don't even think it was a fighter, I think it was a training aircraft of Libya that was shot down. I believe it was being piloted by a Serbian, and it was shot. It wasn't actually shot down. It had landed, and it was actually fired on by a French aircraft, a French jet fighter, while it was on the ground. So presumably it could have hit civilians who were on the ground attending to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk, and even time you do military action, there's a risk. What that shows, though, and your statement there shows how good we are at our ability to come in, to degrade an air defense system, and to protect, to implement a no-fly zone. We did this for 12 years during Iraq, from basically 91 to 2003, and we also did this over Bosnia, Kosovo, and areas like that. This is an important mission, I think, but where I get concerned is in what I call mission creep. If we decide that our interest is in Libya and we want the rebels to win, which I believe it is, and I believe we do have that interest, we need to have a defined goal, and this kind of moment-by-moment, play-it-by-the-wind thing isn't healthy. But I do think the President came a long way yesterday to begin to talk to the American people about why we're there, because I hear it in my constituents. You know, they're ready to support it if there's American interest, if there's humanitarian interest. They just haven't heard that message.
All right, but already you talk about mission creep. I mean, what started out as just a no-fly zone has now become attack on tanks and military personnel on the ground. That sounds like mission creep to me.
Yeah, it does. And look, that's why I think 3 weeks ago we could have implemented a simple no-fly zone and turned the tide of this war. I remember every talking head on television basically saying, you know, Gaddafi's done. It's just now a matter of days. Well, now it looks like he's entrenched into power. So the late reaction on our part, I think the late reaction on our part is the reason that we've had to come in with some ground strikes. But look, here's the key. Our command and control is the best. American command and control, and our ability to strike early and quick and hard is an advantage we have. This needs to become a European face on this and an Arab alliance face on this, as they have the ability to step up, and they've got to get their
it sounds like the French want the whole thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're pushing hard to take control of this.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's an important step in where we need to go. I think the Europeans they have a stronger economic interest in Libya than we do.
Okay.
We have an interest from the perspective that we had American blood on, that Gaddafi has American blood on his hands, too.
Congressman, we have to run, but I have to ask you the question of the day. Should we recognize that rebel contingent, the leadership of the rebels, as the French have done?
I'm not to the point yet of saying we need to recognize them, because I think there's still questions of who's this made up? Is it a monolithic group with one goal? So I don't think we're ready to go to that statement yet, but I think we should bring economic aid and economic prosperity into eastern Libya and show folks in western Libya what life under freedom, and however you define it, would be like compared to life under Gaddafi.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for coming in. Tonight's panel,
again,
Fox
David.
News contributor Monica Crowley, Fox News radio host Alan Colmes, and from Boston, Dr. Keith Abloh.